Coming up on this Thursday edition of Daybreak, for the first time in more than 3 years, the two Koreas will hold reunions of families separated since the Korean War. The family meetings will take place at North Korea's Mount Geunhye resort from February 20th to the 25th. In yet another move sure to damage the Middle East peace process, Israel approves hundreds more Israeli settlement homes in occupied East Jerusalem. Plus, the Olympic flame arrives in Russia's Sochi 2 days ahead of the opening of the Winter Games. Amid heightened security, Russian forces shoot and kill the suspected mastermind of the Volgograd public transportation bombings that killed dozens in December. Daybreak begins now.
You're watching Daybreak on Thursday, February 6th. I'm Choi Yusan in Seoul. It's been a long time coming, but the two Koreas finally reached an agreement on a new round of reunions for families separated since the Korean War. 100 people from each side will reunite with their loved ones later this month in the first of such gatherings in more than 3 years. Our Hwang Sung-hee has our top story.
After just 4 hours of discussions, the two Koreas agreed on Wednesday to resume the long-suspended reunions for families separated by the Korean War.
The Koreas have agreed to hold a round of family reunions from February 20th to the 25th at Mount Geunhye.
The divided family members selected for last year's cancelled reunions will take part, with 100 South Koreans meeting with their loved ones in the first round and another 100 North Koreans taking part in the second round. A team of South Korean engineers will cross the border on Friday to check on facilities at the Mount Geunhye resort, and a South Korean delegation will follow 5 days ahead of the event. The planned reunions coincide with South Korea's annual joint military exercises with the United States, which run from late February through April. North Korea had earlier warned that the humanitarian event could not take place during the military drills, and experts had pointed to the possibility of the North making a counter-proposal on the reunion dates. However, the upcoming drills were not a major issue during the talks.
There was no specific mention by North Korea of the South Korea-U.S. joint military drills, nor a call for the military exercises to be canceled during the talks.
Regarding North Korea's last-minute cancellation of a round of family reunions last year, the ministry said the two sides agreed that such an incident should not happen again. Millions of Koreans were separated by the Korean War more than 6 decades ago, and considering their ages, the time to see their loved ones one last time is running out. The two Koreas agreed to meet for another round of Red Cross talks following the family reunions to discuss a wide range of humanitarian issues, which includes holding the family reunions on a regular basis. Hwang Sung-hee, Arirang News.
And over in the U.S., a group of lawmakers in the House of Representatives sent a message to North Korean leader Kim Jong-un Wednesday, urging Pyongyang to allow hundreds of thousands of Korean Americans in the U.S. to reunite with their separated families in the North. They also called for the immediate release of Korean American Kenneth Bae, who has been detained in the North for over a year on charges of planning to overthrow the regime. As she enters her second year in office, President Park Geun-hye started her check-in with government ministries and offices, where for the next 3 weeks she will be briefed on their detailed plans to achieve her policy goals. Our presidential office correspondent Oh Jin-ju has more.
How well have government ministries and offices performed the tasks set by the Park administration over the past year? The Office for Government Policy Coordination handed in report cards to President Park on Wednesday for the first time in government history. Out of the 140 listed tasks, 21% were said to be on the right track, 60% received satisfactory marks, and around 20% got poor grades. Now, as for categorizing the tasks into President Park's 4 major goals, The government did well in laying the foundation for a peaceful reunification last year, receiving high marks in 41% of the related tasks, while it got the poorest grades for tasks related to economic revitalization. Topping the evaluation list were the Ministries of Defense, Gender Equality, and Foreign Affairs. Based on the evaluations, each ministry is required to submit plans to enhance their performance for 2014 sometime this month. During the first day of the government status reports, President Park put great emphasis on two things: getting rid of unnecessary regulations and normalizing abnormal practices and policies. She ordered ministries to determine the difficulties companies are facing and to devise methods to help them, for example, by capping the total number of regulations. The president also called on ministries to work towards eliminating lax management in the public sector and establish laws to root out corruption. The ministries and offices will be separated into 9 groups based on the issues they deal with to give their status reports. President Park says this is designed to reflect her emphasis on cooperation among related ministries in reaching her administration's key policy goals. The status reports will run through February 24th. Oh Jin-ju, Arirang News.
President Park, meanwhile, has named former newscaster Min Kyung-wook as a new presidential office spokesperson. Min started his career as a reporter at the Korean Broadcasting System in 1991 and has since worked as the public broadcaster's Washington correspondent and the main anchor of its flagship news program. Following news of his appointment, Min said he will do his best to communicate with the press so the Park administration can enhance its communications with the public. The appointment comes about a month after former spokesperson Kim Heng resigned, citing personal reasons. The leader of Korea's main opposition party set out his priorities for the year in Parliament on Wednesday on the heels of the previous day's keynote speech from the ruling party. Kim Hyun-ji has the details on the pledge to reform politics and to narrow the gap between the haves and the have-nots.
Addressing the full assembly and members of President Park Geun-hye's cabinet on Wednesday, Democratic Party chief Kim Han-gil said his party will be at the forefront of reforming parliament and party politics.
We will push for the passage of our bill aimed at preventing lawmakers from abusing their privileges. For this, we will work towards setting up an independent ethics committee that can keep a watch on lawmakers and execute the contents of this bill.
Earlier this week, the Democratic Party leadership issued a political reform proposal that centers around scrapping the privileges of lawmakers and includes having all lawmakers report to an independent ethics committee their plans for overseas travel and commemoration ceremonies for the publication of their books. Kim also called for a rigorous reform of the parliamentary system itself. Specifically, he proposed having the parliament open year-round, operating the parliament's budget committee at all times, and constantly carrying out a parliamentary audit of the government. Kim said his party will fight the government's downsized basic old age pension plan, saying President Park must fulfill her original pledge to give all senior citizens aged 65 and above 200,000 won or $185 every month. He also said his party opposes the government's policy to allow hospitals to form for-profit subsidiaries, saying the healthcare sector should be made more public, not less. He stressed that reunification with North Korea is not something that can be obtained overnight.
President Park said reunification will be like a jackpot that has created a rosy fantasy that reunification will come easy and quickly. I am concerned about this situation.
Saying the public needs to agree on how to prepare for a peaceful reunification with North Korea, the Democratic Party chief called for the establishment of a preparatory body comprised of the government, lawmakers, and civic leaders. Kim Hyun-ji, Arirang News.
Finance Minister Geunhye assured the public on Wednesday that the government will step up its monitoring of the markets so it can minimize the impact of external shocks. Hyun also warned against brisk reaction to changing market developments, adding that it will continue to bolster domestic demand and reduce its heavy dependence on exports. Korean stocks bounced back on Wednesday from declines in the two previous sessions. The benchmark Kospi rose 0.2% on a slight rise in emerging market currencies and an overnight rebound on Wall Street. The tech-heavy Kosdaq fell by 0.4%, while the Korean currency was trading stronger against the greenback at 1,078 won. The Korean government is planning to do more to foster provincial universities over the next 5 years. The Education Ministry says it will set aside over 1 trillion won, or roughly 930 billion US dollars, as part of a 5-year plan to improve universities located outside of urban areas. Up to 70 universities are expected to benefit from the program, which starts this year. The ministry will accept applications until the end of April, and the universities will be selected in June. And starting this April, new visa rules for foreigners wanting to marry and live in Korea will take effect. Foreigners will have to prove they have basic Korean language skills by either passing a language test or completing a language course. As for the Korean partner, he or she will only be eligible to marry a foreigner in Korea if they earn an annual income of roughly 14,000 US dollars, which is more than 120% the minimum cost of living. The Justice Ministry says the rules are intended to address social problems that arise from international marriages, including domestic violence due to communication difficulties or a lack of ability to financially support the family.
If you want the latest news from Korea and around the world,
Return to the negotiations.
President Park Geunhye plans, given the current circumstances,
on your way to work or at home,
Defense Ministry, the legislature will convene a
tune into Daybreak on Arirang TV.
Prime Minister Shinzo Abe said Tuesday. In a move certain to shake already fragile Mideast peace talks, Israeli officials have approved building plans for more than 550 new homes in Jewish settlements in East Jerusalem, land the Palestinians want as their capital. Israel's Jerusalem municipality said Wednesday that its planning committee had approved the construction work in 3 settlements in a part of the West Bank that Israel captured in the 1967 war and later annexed. Israel says the initial plans for the new homes were approved years ago. Palestinians are furious with the decision, saying it could derail U.S. brokered peace talks, which resumed in July of last year. The expansion of Israeli settlements is considered illegal under international law. The United Nations has denounced the Vatican for adopting policies it says allowed priests to sexually abuse thousands of children over a period of decades. In a scathing report Wednesday, the UN Committee on the Rights of the Child said Pope Francis should remove all clergy who are known or suspected as child abusers. The UN watchdog also advised the Vatican to investigate those suspected of concealing the crimes and take them accountable. In response, the Vatican said it would review the report, but criticized the UN body for attempting to interfere with the teachings and values of the Catholic Church. The build-up to the Sochi Winter Olympics has been overshadowed by the threat of terrorism, but the risk may have subsided somewhat after Russian security forces killed a suspected mastermind of recent suicide bombings in the southern city of Volgograd. Russian state media reported Wednesday that Zahmaddin Mizaryev was shot dead by security forces during a house siege in Izberbash, a town in Russia's Rostov Dagestan region. Another man was killed in the shootout, and a third gave himself up. The bombings on Volgograd's public transportation system in December of last year killed 34 people and raised security concerns ahead of the Sochi Games. Authorities believe Mizarev sent 2 men to carry out the suicide bombings. And ahead of the official opening of the Sochi Winter Olympic Games on Friday, the Olympic flame made its way into the host city, and Team Korea was there to hold a welcome ceremony. Our Song Ji-sun reports on the latest.
After traveling some 65,000 kilometers, climbing mountains, plunging into a lake, and even making its first journey into space on a Russian spacecraft, the Olympic flame arrived in Sochi on Wednesday, ending a 4-month journey. The identity of the final torchbearer is still under wraps, but we do know that the torch will be lit at the main stadium on Friday evening during the opening ceremony. Team Korea held a welcoming ceremony at the Olympic Village on Wednesday, vying once again to finish in the top 10 in the medal count for the 3rd consecutive Winter Games. Seoul is sending its largest number of winter sports athletes to the Games, with 71 on the roster. There were headlines off the ice as well on Wednesday. It was confirmed that Ban Ki-moon will become the first UN chief to give a keynote speech to the International Olympic Committee's General Assembly this week before attending the opening ceremony on Friday. However, other prominent world leaders, including the presidents of the United States, France, and Germany, will not attend, all taking stands against Russia's anti-gay laws. At the opening speech of the General Assembly Wednesday, IOC President Thomas Bach slammed politicians for using the Sochi Olympics as a political platform on the backs of the athletes. Song Ji-sun, Arirang News.
A new wave of privacy firms is booming here in Korea as more of our lives are uploaded online. These companies aim to air out your so-called digital laundry and wipe any information about you off the internet, whether it be your banking information or a compromising photo. Our Polly reports.
Financial authorities say 20 million credit card holders had their personal and banking data stolen earlier this month, in one of the biggest security breaches in Korea's history. But in the wake of the mass data leak, a new industry is emerging to address people's concerns about their digital information and other online assets. According to Statistics Korea, some of the hottest businesses in this field specialize in protecting your digital identity and ensuring your personal information stays private. So-called digital cleaners track down a wide range of information on you that can be found on the internet and supposedly wipe away any traces of it. Other privacy firms focus on deleting your social networking service profiles and related messages you may regret posting. And a final solution that is becoming increasingly common to include in one's will includes a digital funeral, which completely erases your online identity after you die or transfers it to your next of kin. Taking the idea one step further, many companies are also offering to curate your online reputation in case prospective employers, for example, go snooping around. Some of the most common so-called digital laundry items that they identify and adjust include embarrassing photos or videos, your online purchases, dating profiles, and even your family history. The booming business is due to surging demand as more Koreans are worried about their online privacy. The Korea Internet and Security Agency says the number of cases related to invasion of privacy has nearly tripled, from about 54,000 cases in 2010 to over 177,000 last year. Paul Yi, Arirang News.
And a good Thursday morning to you all as we kick things off with the latest interview by NBC Sports as they had a chance to sit down with figure skater Kim Yeon-ah. Now with Ryan Seacrest sitting down with Kim Yeon-ah, she stated how she feels comfortable going into the Sochi Winter Games having already experienced the Vancouver Winter Olympics back in 2010. And NBC Sports had a ton of things to say about the Olympic champion, comparing her popularity here in the nation to that of Beyonce and Madonna, as the figure queen showed her English-speaking skills as well. And staying with the Winter Olympics, with the welcoming ceremony taking place yesterday in Sochi, the South Koreans entered the Olympic Village. With 88 nations participating at the Winter Games, Korea was the 18th nation to be welcomed during the ceremony as athletes began their 20-day stay in the coastal city of Russia. Of the 120 athletes and delegations, 65 will be staying at the coastal cluster, with sledders and biathlon athletes staying at the mountain cluster, which includes the mountain village and the endurance village. And more from the Winter Olympics, many of the athletes who finish with a gold medal earn a bonus. And of course, it's different with each nation, but turns out Kazakhstan offers the highest bonus for a gold medal finish. Despite the GDP per capita being just over $13,000, each athlete who finishes with a gold medal during the Sochi Winter Games will be given a $250,000 bonus, with silver medalists earning $150,000 and bronze medalists taking home $75,000. And you don't even need to finish on the podium, as a $5,000 bonus is given for a 6th place finish. And now moving over to some Wednesday night's KBL action, we had the Goyang Orions take on Anyang KGC, with the Orions beating KGC 76-66. Meanwhile, KT Sonic Boom taking on LG Sakers. Let's take a look at the highlights. Now, a high-scoring game in the first half as KT takes a comfortable 46-39 lead going into halftime, thanks to Oh Young-jun and his 12 points in the first half. In the third quarter of the game, Davon Jefferson scoring 21 of LG's 23 points in the quarter, as LG rallies to take the lead before hanging on to take the game 74-73. And finishing things off with some VLeague action from last night, the Hunguk Insurance Life Pink Spiders continued to struggle as they lost to GS Caltex 3-1. Meanwhile, with Urikar taking on the Korean Air Jumbos, let's take a look at the highlights. Now, despite Urikar's strong start to the season, they continue to struggle offensively as they lose the first two sets 25-18 and 25-16. Now, their offense does come alive late in the third set, but with Michael Sanchez putting up game-high 32 points, Korean Air takes the third set 26-24 and a 3-0 victory. And that's going to wrap it up for me. This has been SJ. Have a great rest of the day, and see you guys again for your sports needs.
Good Thursday morning to you. I'm Lee Ji-yeon with your latest weather forecast. Well, it's another cold morning today. The whole nation should have about 4 to 5 degrees higher morning lows compared to yesterday, and afternoon readings will rise to single digits in most regions. So we have nice warm up in the forecast this afternoon. But depends on what parts of the country you are. You can have sunny, cloudy, or a wet morning this morning. But as the day goes on, we should get a lot more sun. But please note that heavy snow is in the forecast for the mountainous regions in Gangwon or Jeju, that is, or Ulleung and Dokdo. So if you're in that region, please be on the lookout for that. Now, tomorrow should be the mildest day of the week. Temperatures will be soaring to 6 degrees Celsius here in the capital. So mild Friday is in store for us, but temperature will drop again on the weekend, and we have a nationwide rain shower in the forecast on Saturday. Please keep that in mind. And here are the readings for today. The morning low in Seoul is at -5 and will get up to 3. Daegu and Gwangju will wake up to low of -3 and -4 and see a high of 5 and 3 respectively, while Busan will top out at 5 this afternoon. Now let's see how other regions are looking. It looks like Jeju will climb up to 7 later in the day. Daejeon will rise to 4, while the top temperature on Mount Kumgang will be at -5. Now that's all for Korea, and here's the global forecast for viewers around the world. Enjoy your morning commute and hope you have a wonderful day.
And those are the stories we have for you this hour. Thank you for being with us.